It's even crazier when we turn and look at what 77 games played got for one Jake Sanderson as we get into a little bit of Ottawa Senators talk here.
Yep. Love the Sens. Sicko Nation, stand up. Love them. And they lock in Sanderson at 8 years, over $8 million. He's played 77 games in the NHL, just signed for 64 sheets. That is incredible. I love that.
Love it for him.
You can call it crazy, dude, but now they've got Tim Stützle, Brady Tkachuk, Shabbat, and Sanderson, and Josh Norris all locked in at less than $8.5 million. Like, they are locking up their core early. A lot of teams are like trending in that direction too, I feel like, where they try to, now all the money like needs to go towards the young players when they are young, because we've seen like the age curve. But like, I mean, Sanderson is a stud. He already defends well. He's incredibly gifted with the skating. He kind of stepped right in once he was healthy and was great for them. So I know it's obviously crazy to throw a $64 million contract at a kid that's played 77 games, but you look at some of the other teams that are doing it too, like New Jersey did the same thing where like Hughes gets locked in for $8 million. You look at Buffalo, they do the same thing with their guys.
There's a little bit more sample size there though, man.
Well, I mean, so they do the same thing. So they throw 7 years, like something around $5 million at Samuelson too in Buffalo. So like they're doing the same thing. Like it's I feel like a lot of teams are trending in that direction where they're trying to lock up those kids.
It's absolutely a trend, but here's my question. Like, is this getting to a point where it's now the expectation that if you're like a high pedigree prospect that you're going to get paid right away? And when that happens, how many busts are we going to see? How many shitty contracts are we going to see that people have to try and work their way out of?
Yeah. And that's the risk, obviously, right? We're like, yeah, you're putting a whole lot of eggs in that basket, but like at the same time, would you rather risk that on throwing $8 million a year, like a 28-year-old for 6, 7, 8 years, and then you're like banking, you know what I mean? So I totally get the thinking. Usually you'd probably want to see more of a sample size in like Sanderson's case, but like, I mean, there were games last year where he was their best player. Like there were several games that I watched the Senators where he was like taking over from the back end. And I mean, now you've got those guys locked in and like really good cap hits if they all hit their potential. I mean, we've already seen with Tkachuk, you see it with Stützle. Shabbat's an interesting one. I don't really know what to think of him as a defenseman. There are games where he's unfucking believable, and obviously he can play like 30 minutes a night, that's pretty nice. Then there's just some games like, oh my God, he doesn't know how to play defense, but at the same time, he's obviously a big part of that team too. So, I mean, I completely understand the thinking. I am of the mind that you do invest in your young players in their prime years. So now you're looking at the cap going up and all of their best players being locked in at less than $9 million a year. You'll sign up for that, I think, 10 times out of 10. I do think Sanderson hits, man. I think Sanderson hits. Like
this is less a shot at Sanderson than it is just like I am very worried about the way this is trending for the NHL at large. Like,
I also love seeing young players.
Did Kirill Kaprizov break contracts? Is this his fault?
Everything is Kirill's fault in the Minnesota Wilds and Bill Guerin, president of the country.
I mean, I can't argue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know though. Like, I think forever young players in the NHL had zero like power, zero like they had no control over their own like fucking careers, and now you're like. Over the years, they started getting more and more like control and rights or whatever. And now you're seeing them actually like teams investing in them. So I think it's a good thing, honestly. If teams are going to start investing in those younger players, then I think that's good for the league because you're investing realistically in the best players in their prime years. So, I mean, is it risky? Yep. But at the same time, I am very confident that Sanderson will hit that potential and beyond because he's that good. Like, again, like so many games last year, I was like, Jesus, that kid's a fucking stud. And he's played less than a full season in the NHL. He's already more than capable of playing.